Welcome back to the OMB Law Board. I'm Simon Bennett, and today I've got Harley with us from the Estates team. Welcome back, Harley.
Thanks for having me back, Simon. Good to be here.
Harley, today I wanted to talk about quite a popular problem we're seeing in estates, which is the DIY will, what we commonly refer to as the $1 million mistake.
That's right. We love these because they make lawyers a lot of money when we've got to fix up the problems they create.
Okay, so today I'm going to get you to drill down on the problems with DIY wills and how we can fix it and how we can avoid it. So stick around as we unpack the DIY will. Harley, what is a do-it-yourself will?
A do-it-yourself will is basically one that you can do at home on your own without assistance from a lawyer. They can take a few different forms.
Yep.
It could be a will you pick up from the post office, like a bit of a fill-in-the-blanks style will kit. Could be a letter or something that you just write on a napkin or a blank piece of paper, or even a video. You know, you can do a video recording of yourself. That can sometimes qualify as a DIY will.
Okay, could you tell our listeners and viewers, why would someone want to or try to do this will yourself?
Well, the DIY wills are appealing for a lot of people because they're accessible, they're affordable, and they're convenient.
Okay. The thing that always gets me, right, is when you're alive, if I went to take off your phone or your pen, let alone your car, you would fight me tooth and nail for it. But when we're dealing with a will, we're talking about everything you own, and you're going to leave that in the hands of a do-it-yourself job?
Yeah, and that's where we can have some issues. There are a lot of problems, a lot of risks with DIY wills. And I think really that is the biggest thing, is exposure to risk. Something that people miss. If they're not trained, they don't have legal experience, they're not going to be aware of those risks. They're not going to be thinking of those. Those risks would be things like having the will incorrectly signed or witnessed, risks of missing essential clauses, risks of using unclear, vague, or ambiguous wording. There are a range of different things.
And they're simple, aren't they? They're really basic, simple mistakes that could literally cost you millions.
They could, yes. They can lead to family feuds, they can cost a lot of money in legal fees, and it can come down to just a really simple error, something that you're not thinking of. And that can be, that's one of the big problems, is that you're not going to find a problem that you're not looking for. If you're doing a little bit of research online about your will and how to do it, you might be thinking, this is something in particular that I need to avoid. But if you're so focused on that, you could be missing other issues altogether.
And I recall from, way back in law school days, really basic stuff, like I'm going to throw a couple at you that just seem so ridiculously simple, and it could have a massive error. Not signing with the same pen.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so not using the same pen can raise a question about whether or not you have the two witnesses there and present at the same time.
Not having two witnesses in the room at the same time as you. A paperclip mark in the top corner.
Yes, we see those. And that's something that'll raise a question about, does that contain all of that person's testamentary intentions? Was something else added in later? Was something removed? There's a lot of uncertainty and therefore risk.
So these problems really aren't problems for the deceased because they're no longer here, but it's an absolute grenade and a handball to your survivors.
Yeah. The way I see the DIY wills is that it's a short-term solution in terms of finding an affordable alternative, but there's a long-term problem in that if you have one of these simple issues that can turn into a big problem, it can cost a lot more money to fix, and it's your family that's got to foot the bill.
So Harley, could you give me an example of when one of these do-it-yourself wills hasn't worked so I can understand?
Yep. absolutely. All right. So I'll use a bit of an example, do a bit of a scenario here. So let's say that we've got a bloke named Garth. He's got a couple of kids, Luke and Leia. He basically wants to leave his estate between his two kids. He does his DIY will. He wants to leave his property to Luke. All right. He's got a specific clause in the will for that, but he wants to leave the rest or the remainder to Leia. Sounds simple enough.
Yeah.
Fast forward a few years, Garth develops dementia, doesn't have capacity anymore. His health deteriorates a bit and he's got to move into a home or an aged care facility. Can't afford it, he's got to sell the house and goes in. Fast forward another few years, Garth dies. Kids are looking for the will, they eventually find it, and there's a nice big surprise. Luke gets the house that Garth no longer owns, it's not in the estate, but the will says that everything else goes to Leah. And the issue is that at this point in time, that is the entire estate. Leah gets everything.
Luke misses out.
Much to the disappointment of Luke, who gets absolutely nothing. And you can think back to the will and see, well, that probably wasn't Dad's intent, and he was probably a bit of an innocent mistake or an oversight. But that's the simple mistake. That's a simple error that can be made. And the fallout is that, well, Luke's in a situation he gets nothing now, and his only real recourse is probably going to be to make a family provision application.
So we've got an unfortunate situation where innocently Dad's done the right thing, it hasn't worked out, and his children are going to be fighting potentially over the estate. That's
exactly it. And that entire scenario could have been avoided right from the start had Garth gone and sought proper legal advice. He would have been alerted to that issue and he could have planned accordingly.
Yeah. So give us the solution. How do we fix this? What happens when you come to a lawyer to get a legal will drafted?
Look, the big thing really is that you're going to be able to get tailored and personal advice that relates to your personal circumstances and the estate plan and the will that you want to make. That is something that you just cannot get from a will kit. It's not something you can get from a Google search or from something like ChatGPT AI. Yeah, you might get a little bit out of it, but it's not going to give you the whole picture. And that's where your lawyer can be really, really important, because they're going to help alert you to risks that you wouldn't have even been aware of to begin with. And something as simple as, you know, not witnessing, having the will witnessed and signed correctly, your lawyer can help you avoid that very, very easily.
Dealing with companies, trusts, then we get into testamentary trusts in estates. They're all really complicated issues, right? And they're just not capable of being done through the simple do-it-yourself will.
That's exactly it. Speaking to those people in particular, if you have, excuse me, if you have a small business, you've got a trust, self-managed super fund, you're probably not doing your taxes yourself in relation to those entities. Why would you do your own will?
Yeah, fantastic point. And dialing back to where we started, don't make the $1 million mistake. Don't do it yourself. It's valuable, it's important, it's everything you own. Get it done properly.
That's exactly right. Give our team a call, have a chat, get the right advice, help protect your family's financial future.
Harley, fantastic having you on today. Thank you so much. I know all about do-it-yourself wills.